As it scales,
Yeah.
fewer and fewer of the good ideas come from headquarters, and more of the innovation occurs in the front lines.
Yep.
And so an organization has to shift from, look, I had this idea that was the genesis of this entire organization.
Right.
I'm amazing. And people are like, well, what are you going to do next? And it's
Yep.
very hard to say, well, I'm going to go ask my people what they're seeing.
Welcome again to It Doesn't Take a Genius, conversation with introspective perspectives and pithy points of view. Here are your hosts, my friends, Max and Marty.
I think that's Mark and Mike.
Yeah, whatever.
Ramsey!
Marshall, I hope you're having a great Lego day.
Oh, and the same to you, my minifig. Yes, any day with Legos is a good day.
That's correct. That is absolutely correct.
Most definitely.
I don't know if I ever told you this, but all of my childhood Legos were in a tote and stolen out of one of my houses when I was moving. Yep. So, and I'm telling you, like, now looking at the cost of antique Legos, if we can call them that, thousands of dollars. I mean, tiny sets, but I had pre-minifigure Lego that was,
holy cow.
Yeah, just it's tragic. But anyway, we're here to talk about Lego, as it turns out.
Oh yeah, one, and more specifically, innovation.
Yeah.
When you look at Lego, the juggernaut that it is now, and the Lego stores and the Lego conventions and the Lego movie,
Yep.
You're thinking, oh man, this thing's always been amazing, and we almost had a world without Lego in the 2000s. They were on the edge of bankruptcy.
Yep. And we saw that coming. Those of us, so I'm a child of the 80s, and there was a period of just really dynamic growth. And if you watch the first Lego movie, you'll see some of that shows up in a scene where they do a bunch of quick cuts of different Lego worlds. Mm-hmm. And one of the worlds is Fabuland. I had Fabuland Lego. Fabuland was like anthropomorphic minifigures that were like mice and foxes and stuff like that had like sets where they were farming and things like that. It was so bizarre, but it was like they were trying some really, really wild stuff for a long time. And then there was just this period kind of in the 90s, late 90s, you started thinking, man, is there any gas left in the tank? And turns out there was, just not necessarily from inside Lego, right?
Oh yeah. So I had the opportunity, and I knew you were an aficionado. So trying to increase my pop culture world knowledge, I watched the Lego Brickumentary.
Mm-hmm.
And it's old. It's from I think 2014, but I hadn't seen it before. And the whole thing was talking about, how do you turn this company around? Right? They were flailing around, like as you said, they lost energy, they'd lost momentum. And it was interesting, though, there were still these incredibly active users, these incredibly passionate fans, these advocates outside of Lego world, or the Lego company, that were still innovating and doing stuff with the brick. Yep. And so the Lego company was very hesitant. They had their own, they had an entire building of designers, Lego designers, to come up with ideas for what's going to be the next Lego product. And they were so hesitant to entertain any ideas from their fans, from the people who were building every day with their product. And at some point, they begin to just slowly start to go, okay, what if we went and figured out what the public wants? And we know what the public wants because it's what they're building. It's what they're spending their time and money on.
Yeah.
And maybe go with that trend. It goes to my old saying, if I see a whole bunch of people going down the street, my goal is to get in front of them so it looks like a parade in my honor. And so, Lego, same thing. All right, all these people are going this direction. What if we ran out and got in front of them? Gave them some credit for the idea. and then ultimately, made the profits, rejuvenated the company and spoke to an audience that's literally built what they want to see and what they want to purchase.
Yeah, and you and I were talking about some examples of that, and I guess let me stop for a minute and just say, before we keep talking about Lego, this very much applies to your workspace. This is part and parcel to every organization out there, that there is a front line somewhere, and you have some things to learn from that front line that will help rejuvenate and allow you to innovate within your organization, whatever it is. So we're going to come back to the principles there, but just to give a few more examples, I homeschool. My wife and I homeschool our children. If you go to the homeschool convention, you're going to see some of this kind of stuff that we talk about MOCs, Lego MOCs, MOCs, my own creation. People coming up with some really wild stuff that Lego probably wouldn't produce anyway. Some of which is weapons. So at the homeschool convention, you're going to occasionally see one of the guys who has a booth producing, injection molded or resin produced or 3D printed weapons like, M16s and Uzis and like the stuff of my dreams as a kid, right? Like we were always making, like they sold like the flashlight. We were always turning the flashlight into either a lightsaber or a ray gun, like it was one of the two. But now you can go buy these third-party pieces that are produced like that. I actually have a game sitting over here on the shelf that was a Kickstarter campaign, and it's basically like a war game around sort of like Japanese anime style mech robots, and it's all done with Lego. So they had a guy who came up with a rule set, and then they had this other guy doing MOCs of anime style mechs who had all these really innovative designs. He was actually breaking some of the internal Lego rules about how you would put certain bricks together so that he could make these designs look a little more Japanese and streamlined. Well, it was a mega hit. Like it just, I can't remember how much money it raised, but tons of money, got some celebrity involvement. And so there was money to be made, just none of it by Lego at that point.
Oh yeah. People were making money with their product. At the same point, they're going bankrupt. And when you think about it, right, one of the things that I enjoy about that story about the third-party vendor creating weapons. So Lego would make space guns and they would make 6-shooters for their Western characters, but they wouldn't make any modern weaponry, which was them living their values.
That's right.
And so they said, this does not align with our values. Yes, there's tons of money to be made from it, but we're not going to go there.
Yep.
But there were countless other examples where people were doing stuff that did align with their values, and they weren't willing to accept that innovation.
Yeah.
So in the Brickumentary, they talk about one of the iconic sets now is the architecture series.
Yep.
And every famous building that you got the
I've got the
Tower.
Sears Tower right behind me.
Yeah. So that came about. There was an actual architect who designed some of the famous buildings that we all are aware of, and he was building these Legos versions of these buildings, and he thought they would sell. Right? He thought it was a good idea, and he got a hold of Lego and told them what he was doing. They went, "Nah, we don't think so. There's no market for that." So this guy went out. He bought boxes. He had labels printed with he created a building, right? Created the sets, bagged them, boxed them, labeled them, took them to a Lego convention, 300 sets that he had personally put out the money to create, and then sold them all the first day. like we're all gone, right? And the Lego guys were there going, "Hey, this is and so I'm sure they went back to headquarters. I got this great idea, boss." Architecture series. Visionary. How do you come up with these ideas? But literally the customer had to prove to the company that more people wanted this. He spent his time, his money, his energy, his creative talent to prove to the company, this will work, right? People want this.
Well,
and in business, we see so many of these ideas where the customer or the frontline employees, the people who are your people on your team who are talking to the customers every single day, that's all they do is talk with customers, and they know,
Yeah.
right? They're in touch with these folks. They know the pulse. They know that what the customers are wanting, right? What they don't want. And can I build an organization that is accepting and even goes out and looks for these ideas from their frontline people?
Yeah. 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 Huge. I think about, well, you gave the architecture series, as an example. Another one is Bricklink, which is essentially eBay for Lego parts. You know, they there was such a demand for, man, I'd really like to make this thing that doesn't exist, but I'll need like 10 of these bricks. There's actually a brick now known as the Travis brick, and it was because there was a guy named Travis who sadly passed away very early on, but it was this very distinct piece that he had figured out a lot of uses for, and so this brick just took off. But only on the third-party site Bricklink, where you could go buy 5 gajillion pieces of this because people would, post their used Lego on there for sale, eBay style. Well, eventually the Lego stores started, having this wall of bricks at the back of the store where you could buy stuff in bulk. And one of the things that you could often buy in bulk was the Travis brick. And again, it was something that you would have, if you had been looking, you would have very easily seen, oh my, there is a huge amount of interest here. It didn't take too much to connect the dots, right? To say, oh, if we made more of these bricks, we would sell these bricks. It was just the fact that you had to have your radar up to say, oh, did you see that there's this website where people are paying a premium to go buy bricks from other people, even cobbling together orders from like 5 different vendors so that they could fulfill all the, bricks that they needed of a certain type. I mean, it was that level of crazy town because the bricks were in such demand. So just having your radar up to go notice things like that.
Oh yeah. When you think about it, right? A company in the throes of bankruptcy,
Yeah.
facing imminent demise,
Yep.
and yet that pain was still not enough for them to go looking and for them to be open to these ideas.
Yeah.
And people had to literally just keep beating down their door with this is what the people want. And then you look at the transformation now. The company's doing incredibly well, and they've completely embraced and brought into house, this, they were talking about ideas.lego.com. And so you can create some cool Lego creation, which I have a couple of examples behind me.
Yep. They're awesome.
These are the 2023 user created ideas that were accepted by Lego and will now become Lego sets. So you create your creation, you take some photos, you submit it to ideas.lego.com. And then if it gets 10,000 votes by the users on the website, then it automatically gets reviewed by the Lego board for possible inclusion into production.
Yep.
And you get the creator, if their creation is accepted, it goes into production, gets 1% for every set that's sold.
Which I bet is a decent amount of change. I think some of these are limited edition, but I bet that's a good amount of money.
Yeah, you could see if the set was mildly acceptable, sold a few thousand, there was like $15,000, $20,000 that, but when they talked to the creators who had done this, none of them did it for the money.
Yeah. Oh no.
Like this was my passion project. I created this art and I wanted to get it out to the world. And this was the way to do it. And the money was like, they were like, kind of like, well, yeah, that was nice, but I created this thing
right.
and now the whole world gets to see it. So, you start to think about other businesses that have applied this idea. The first one I think of, we've talked about Toyota and their Kaizen, and they know that the people running the machines on the production line, the people, putting the cars together are the ones who are going to figure out better ways to do that. If
It's Gemba, right?
Yeah. If they create the environment that A, I want these ideas are valued, and B, they go asking, they go looking for it,
Right.
and asking people for for their ideas, their thoughts around how do we make this, improve the quality and improve the efficiency, the speed, and that type of thing.
Yeah.
And in turn, you've got this juggernaut of a company, wildly profitable, all these ideas coming back from their frontline team members.
Yeah. And what's powerful about the Toyota example, and I think Gemba, I think means literally like the place where it happens, or the actual place. It's basically encouraging leadership to like go where the thing is actually occurring. And that could be the problem, or it could be the innovation, right? But tour a Toyota factory, and you will see this being played out right in front of you. And I think we've talked about this before, that at the Kentucky plant where they've built the Avalon, the Camry, the Sienna, there's a Lexus being built there. I think several new very cool things are coming that I'm not sure are public yet. But the Toyota plant in Kentucky uses bass boat chairs. Like they figured out that, that is the perfect little swivel seat for some of the things that they had to do there. Trust me, that came from a redneck, that came from a Kentucky boy. The Japanese didn't show up with that. And it's perfect because it solves the problem that was right there in front of them about, how they, it's a whole thing about, what they were trying to prevent there in terms of mutilation of vehicles and so on. But again, it takes some humility, right, to be able to come out of the office and say, hey guys, what would fix this? What would make this better? What would be the innovation here that would take us to the next level? And I'll give the counter example. And I don't mind bringing up the name because my dad was a part of the company, and I was sad when it went away. General Motors screwed up with Saturn. Saturn had this amazing little idea for how to run a retail organization for car dealerships, and also how to make cars. And Spring Hill, Tennessee was this, phenomenal factory where people were energized and so on and so forth. It was very engaging. And they made a car that was okay. The L series, just a little 4-door sedan. There was a 2-door version. I had one and I loved it. And it wasn't a great car. It was a good car. It wasn't a great car. But the whole experience of purchasing the car and how clever they had been about what the car was built like, I just loved it. So they went to Spring Hill and said, hey, what should be car number 2, Saturn employees? And Saturn employees, I'm told, said, oh, we need like an SUV, but a small one. That's exactly what our customers, who are turned on to us and so loyal to us. Remember, they were so loyal that the sitcom Ellen did an episode making fun of how cult-like they were. Like it was like the Jupiter or the Venus car, making fun of Saturn customers. And GM said, how about instead of a small SUV, whatever that would be, how about instead we rebadge a bigger sedan? And that's what they did. And it was the L series, and it was a dog. It was not a great car. And then, fast forward, and, in 1999, Ford comes out with this thing called the Escape, and it sells like gangbusters. And after the fact, you get the Saturn View and the rebadges of that, the Equinox and so on. They missed it. They missed it. They could have been the ones right at the forefront, at the bleeding edge of exactly what the market wanted. And GM did not have, I believe, the humility to listen to what those employees were saying, who were on the front line and knew what the innovation should be.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they were tone deaf to their people.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's interesting about Saturn, I just learned not too long ago, and having worked with the brand as well, a huge fan. Every car company in America is trying to get back to where Saturn was.
That's exactly
in terms
right.
of customer loyalty, customer experience, the demographics of their customers. They're all trying to get back there, and GM had it and they couldn't keep themselves from destroying it.
Yep.
So something I learned that I didn't know was Saturn actually started not as a GM company. It was started by for some former GM executives.
Hmm.
So some GM executives got together, created this car company, and then, you know, GM saw it and bought it from the executives. So it started as a, you know, this little guerrilla marketing, you know, idea. And so GM bought it, and it had its own, they had their own engine, their own plant, their own car design, and they had their own arrangement with the UAW. Right. So
Yes.
they were, the union was not in, you know, the regular union was not involved, regular GM was not involved. It was literally a standalone, you know, it had its just own distribution. And at some point, GM could not help but just, you know, just take control of it. Let's start building them other places. Let's give them this engine from this car, rebadging platforms. And at some point, the UAW said, no, we got to be in there. And so they brought the UAW in with its rules and regulations that didn't fit the Saturn production model. And they killed the whole thing, right? Just strangled it with their inability to say, maybe these people have a better idea and we could go with it.
And I promise you that those Saturn customers would still be loyal. Like if Saturn came back, like they'd buy it in a heartbeat. I remember calling on a store that was given the Saturn, the Saturn authorized service provider badge. When Saturn finally was, you know, the plug was pulled, who's going to service these cars? We still have to honor that warranty. Well, you know, this was a luxury dealership that had been awarded the that badge on the same campus as the Saturn dealership that was now out of business. And the Saturn customers would pull into this luxury service lane and get out and get this luxury experience and still complain. You know, I wish Saturn was, I just wish you could, you know, and what they did was so different. And so, you know, it went on for years that way.
Oh
Just
yeah.
Crazy.
Well, and you look at that, and you look at, okay, you know, the lack of humility, the preponderance of ego, and you look at an example like Toyota, you know, and you see, okay, what happens when I embrace it? And then another one would be Whole Foods. So if you're a manager at Whole Foods, you get final say on who you hire. You get to decide what you stock in your department. And lo and behold, right, premium prices, premium customers, premium experience, because they have total control over, you know, or a much greater autonomy to run their departments.
Empowered.
And you think about it, goes all the way down to, I think we may have talked about it even in the most recent episode where myself and a manager were looking at a sales prospect that had come in, you know, via the online inquiry. And we were brainstorming what to do with it. And we came up with what we thought were some pretty good ideas.
Yep.
And then we assigned it to a salesperson. Salesperson comes over and you know, being good coaches, we didn't tell him what to do. We said, all right, so here's what you've got. What would you do with this? And his idea was 1,000 times better than ours.
Right.
Like, it was embarrassing how obviously better what he had thought to do with this customer in order to get them on board than what me and the manager had even remotely come up with. And yeah, we had to just sit there and go, well, yeah, that would be good too. yeah, you can do that. Yeah, no, well, I'd run with that, you know, and just, you know, and it happens over and over and over, right? If you'll engage your people, sincerely ask it, right? So what else could we do with this, right? What would you do this? What have you seen that could make this, you know, more, you know, work better, you know, differently? You know, how can we improve this? They will have ideas if they believe you sincerely want to hear them, and that there's any remote chance that you might act upon it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's one of the fears. Managers are like, well, I can't have the tail wagging the dog, you know, and I have value. I'm a manager. I'm supposed to. They pay me to come up with the good ideas.
Yeah.
No,
No.
they pay you to get stuff done.
That's right.
And if you can get stuff done easier by using your employees' ideas, they'll just think you're a genius.
That's exactly
You'll be
right.
worth immensely more to the company.
Yeah, and companies that really get this, Lego gives 1% to the designer for those special projects under Lego Ideas. Toyota gives a cut of the savings to the team members who came up with a process improvement enhancement. So the funny thing is that's really not what this podcast is about. Is not suggesting, oh, you need to financially honor all of that. What we're suggesting is, why don't you go do it? Why don't you go create an environment where you're looking at the front lines and engaging them in conversation and saying, what do you see? What are the opportunities here? It's that simple. Doing that on a regular basis, making it safe to do that. By when I say safe, I just mean that you're going to act on it. You're going to acknowledge it and at least, entertain it. That's innovation. That's a game changer.
Oh yeah. And I believe our good friend, Dr. Dan Edgar, Mr. PhD doctor, not the kind that helps people. That was mean. Sorry, Dan. But I believe the main focus of his thesis was that innovation happens on the edges. But he also found that it had to do with the age of the organization. So when you first start a company, the good ideas come from the founder. Right. So you got Sergey and whoever, you got Steve and Wozniacki and these guys, they got the big ideas, and that works. As it scales, fewer and fewer of the good ideas come from headquarters, and more of the innovation occurs in the front lines. And so an organization has to shift from, look, I had this idea that was the genesis of this entire organization. I'm amazing. And people are like, well, what are you going to do next? And it's very hard to say, well, I'm going to go ask my people what they're seeing. And take that feedback and allow that to help us to grow and stay in touch with our customers. So that idea of, at some point it tips, where it goes from the mothership has all the ideas to the best ideas are now happening out in the hinterlands, and having the courage to look at the data and go, all right, so their numbers are great. All right, they're selling a bunch of this. They're doing something different here.
Right.
Let's send a team out, not to squash them for not following the process.
Right.
Let's go find out, what are you doing, and is that replicatable across the whole organization?
Spot on. Leadership gets insulated the bigger you get. So you've got to do something to cut through that. Yeah.
Simon Sinek's, he talks about that. He'll ask a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, what's your number one job? And it's like, to provide a great customer experience. And he's like, when was the last time you talked to a customer?
That's right. That's
like,
right.
when was the last time you waited on a customer? No, that's not your job. Your job is to create this environment where we take care of the customer and figure out what would serve them best next, right? What's the innovation that would help us the most? Whether it's how to handle an individual sales prospect, all the way down up to what's the major product launch that would keep us relevant, keep us profitable moving forward.
Yeah, love this. And I really, for me, this whole thing boils down to a mindset of I'm going to be a learner, I'm going to be humble, I'm going to be open. And it turns out, by the way, that all the stuff we're talking about that's going to give you this innovation, bleeding edge, advantage, also makes your employees more engaged. So this is a win-win for all parties involved. And I hope people take this seriously, because this truly is something that can transform an organization.
Oh, yeah. And if we were to ask the most innovative man in the world, he would say, stay curious, my friend.
Are you talking about John Wolfe?
Yes, John Wolfe, the most interesting man in the world. Mr. Wolfe, take it away, sir.
So go ahead and tweet that, or share it any other way you want. As always, there are no rights reserved, no trademarks, no copyrights. Share it if you want to. And join us next time on It Doesn't Take a Genius.
good enough.